Welcome to the Life Turkey podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Life Junkies podcast. I'm joined by Chris. Well, sort of joined by Chris. We will both be on this recording, but we will both be recording separately as before. However, there is a difference this time. Whereas Chris has edited on his own, was recorded on its own, and then he sent me the files and I've listened to and reacted to them. This time I am recording first, and then I'm sending my files over, so he will be able to react to and insult me for my views to his heart's content without me being able to say anything back. So, let's get this started. I do need to apologise for silence in the podcasts. It's me. It's all me. It's me. It's not you. It's with uni, and I've had several assignments on recently and other personal stuff. So it's just I've been struggling to sort of get my ducks in a row, so to speak, and to edit it. There's a lot to talk about, so I'm not really going to try and do an intro bit. I'm just going to jump straight into things.
This is a Life Turkey podcast.
Right, NXT Takeover WarGames. So we start with Matt Riddle versus Finn Balor. Now, this looks to be a decent match. I think Balor will help Riddle raise his game, and this is sort of where you're looking at levels here. Like Finn Balor for me is main event level talent. He was the man in NXT. I don't know if anyone else has been the man quite like Finn Balor was. And when you look at the names that have come through NXT, that's quite a high bar to raise. Finn Balor coming down. This is his first match back in NXT proper, so he has to walk away with a win for this one for me. A loss won't hurt Riddle that much, not against Finn Balor, and if they can put on a good match, which I think they will, then it will elevate both men. So Finn Balor for the win here. Moving on to the number one contenders match for the NXT title, we have Pete Dunne versus Killian Dane versus Damian Priest. I was really impressed a couple of weeks ago with Dunne and Priest's matches. They were really good. I'm really impressed with Priest. I think he's got a great original look. He's got a great moveset as well. He seems quite intelligent in the ring, and people that have listened to this podcast before know my love for Pete Dunne. He is one of my favourite wrestlers going right now. The issue here comes with Killian Dane. I haven't been impressed with him. I think he's flat to deceive to a certain extent. They've given him a push and he's got a decent look about him and he's got this. But just in the matches, he hasn't really done anything for me so far. So, again, a triple threat format, which we're going to see a lot on this podcast. I would go for Dunne to win it and take it home. I think for me, Priest is still new. And while I think he's very good, I don't think you just want to hotshot him straight to the NXT main event. Dane still needs a lot of improvement before moving up. I think he can be good enough to move up, but he's not quite there yet. So Dunne is the man. It's his time to go challenge for title. Brilliant. Moving on to WarGames. Rhea Ripley, Candice LeRae, Tegan Nox and Mia Yim versus Shayna Baszler, Io Shirai, Bianca Belair and Kaylee Ray. So in here you've got, on the heels team, you've got the women's NXT Women's Champion, we've got the NXT UK Women's Champion, and then on the other side you've got the Beasts that are Ripley and Yim, and also the technical wrestlers that are Candice LeRae and Tegan Nox. This match in itself shows just how packed full of talent the NXT Women's Division is for me. Watching NXT, and I don't want to go too much into an NXT versus AEW thing, but one of the things that has really, really been striking for me is just how poor the AEW Women's Division is, coming from a subset of fans that are supposed to be pushing inequality and the idea that the AEW Women's Division is supposed to be on par with the men's division, and it's been left. I've been left wanting. I haven't seen a match that's made me go, oh, it's really good. There's no wrestlers on there that have got me going, oh no, I need to see her next. I think if you look at the best women's wrestlers in the world, they're all in WWE as a company, and a lot of them are in NXT. And I granted, I say that with not watching Impact or New Japan or Ring of Honor or any of those, although places like Ring of Honor have got their own issues. So what we've got here is a storyline with Dakota Kai being upset she was overlooked for the team. For me, I think she'll return and she'll cost the faces here. So I would say Baszler, Shirai, Belair, and Kaylee Ray getting the win here. What we do know is it's going to be a great match. And nearly every woman in here is brilliant. I know there's some that I'm not such a fan of. Belair being the main one, Kaylee Ray being another. I'd rather see someone like Toni Storm take her spot, but that's fine. Toni Storm couldn't have stepped into the heels team like she has, and Candice LeRae still hasn't really shone for me, and I think we get to see what Nox has got. I don't think Nox, if to turn around and say I'm not impressed with Nox so far, is giving her it's not giving her enough of a chance. So give her a chance, see what she can do. She seems alright from what we've seen so far, but we haven't seen enough for her to, I think, make a informed decision. But people like Ripley and Yim are both very good. Baszler, I really love her. She's brilliant, and Shirai again is great in the ring. Yeah, she's improved a lot, and she's become a lot more accurate since she was in the women's the Mae Young Classic. So yeah, for me, heels to win here: Baszler, Shirai, Belair, and Kaylee Ray. Finally, before we end part 1 and this little segment, Chris will talk in a minute, but before I finish my part on part 1, the WarGames match with the Undisputed Era versus Tommaso Ciampa, Keith Lee, Djokovic, and a to-be-announced wrestler. Rumours about the fourth man. I've heard some people claim it could be Kevin Owens. I know he's got a match on Survivor Series, so I don't know. For me, though, personally, someone like Aleister Black or Antonio Cesaro are also really good shouts. I think this is a really hard one to call. I wrote down the Undisputed Era into the show notes, going, no, it'll be them. And I was thinking about that to be decided, or TBA, and the thing is, this is probably going to close the show, no matter how good the women are. I think this is the match to close the show with a TBA, and that means it's going to have to be someone big, a big name, and they're shown with Finn Balor. They're not afraid to move people down, even though Balor asked for that. I can see other wrestlers asking to be moved down and perhaps being happier. With guys like Black and Cesaro, if it's either Black or Cesaro, both of them big names, both of them have reason to want to move back down, because that's where they would shine far more than they are on the main roster. They're not even being used, really. So I'm going with the faces to win this one, with Ciampa, Lee, Djokovic, and TBA. Just on a side note before I move on, before I pause to give Chris a chance to talk, how good has Tommaso Ciampa been so far? He has been, for me, the guy on wrestling. He's even outshone Balor, and I referred to Balor as the man of NXT earlier, or the king of NXT. But Ciampa, his return, just everything about him, the entire heel character that works so well as this menacing, slightly off-kilter heel, it works just as good as a menacing, off-kilter face. It's the same character. It's just who he's going for, and maybe he's a bit less violent, but it shows just what a brilliant character it is, that you can just flip, just easy like that. So he's been and every time you see him walk out on NXT, it's goosebumps. So yeah, brilliant. Faces to win, and moving on.
Hi mate, hope you're good. Heard your intro. Yeah, unfortunately we're not together again this week. Work busy as ever. FA Cup replays, exotic places like Ossett United and Lincoln City for me this week, hence why we're not recording together. Cool, so I'm just going to listen to your recordings in bits and then do my bit afterwards, react to it live as is. So yeah, here we go. You've just gone through your WarGames. I don't know too much about it, to be honest, mate. I've had a quick look. I've watched this week's NXT, which was very good. I think we're going for all the same picks as well. Balor Riddle is potential to be an incredible match. I really like Matt Riddle. He's come along a lot. He had this week they put him up against Ricochet on the show, which on paper looks like a great match, but obviously we had the inevitable run-ins from different people, but one of the people that did come in towards the end is Balor. They had a bit of a spat. And yeah, it should be a really good match, but I think, like you've said, I really don't see them making Balor lose so early on his return. So I reckon we're going to get a spirited defeat for Matt Riddle, and Balor will win. Where it'll go from there, I don't know. But yeah, definitely going to put Balor down for the win. The next one was the number one contenders match. So we've got Pete Dunne, Killian Dane and Damian Priest. As you know, and I've said many times on it, I'm not a massive Pete Dunne fan. Just not a big fan of his style. I do like Priest. I like since he's come on, I think he's been very impressive. Killian Dane's one who's raw, but got potential. But I think I'm. Well, we're not actually picking the same person on this. I think I'm going to say Killian Dane. Might just nick it and push him in, because the other thing, obviously, what you'll probably not know when you record, is that the winner of this match will now face Adam Cole at Survivor Series for the belt. So it's back-to-back nights, but yeah. So the winner of this will make it onto Survivor Series. Will Dane win? You know what? Now I've said that out loud, I think you're probably right. I think Pete Dunne will win, because I think they'll push Pete Dunne onto the main card, onto the main pay-per-view, for that match on Survivor Series. So yeah, I'm gonna go Pete Dunne. Pete Dunne will win. Pete Dunne Adam Cole's a match. You know, Pete Dunne was the longest serving champion for a long time. So him and Adam Cole will probably be the match that they'll put through onto Survivor Series. Then we've got the WarGames matches, as in the team matches. The women's one I'm not overly troubled by, to be honest. You know, I don't see anywhere that Baszler, Belair, and the other two win. I just don't. I don't see them sending Baszler into Survivor Series on the back of a defeat. So, however, I mean, there's a lot of talent there. Obviously, Ripley this week on the show, Ripley went one-on-one with Becky Lynch and did really well before the run-ins, and looked the part, to be honest. So she's got a big future, but I just don't see them sending Baszler in to Survivor Series on the back of a defeat, even though it's a team defeat. So I'm also going to say that Baszler's team will win. And then the men's side, obviously, you've got Undisputed Era against Ciampa, Lee, Djokovic, and a TBA. Obviously, you've said it could be Kevin Owens, it could be Cesaro. He still didn't tell you who was going to be on NXT this week. I've been trying to think who else it could be. I think Johnny Gargano's injured. Unless he's somewhere near fit, he could be the person to make that return. Or the other person who, he surprised me really, because he's a big character and I think he's got a big future, but he's been nowhere near any of the Survivor Series stuff. And that is the Dream, Velveteen. So I'm going to say that the last person's going to be Velveteen Dream, and that team will win. I do think Undisputed Era will lose here, but then I think we'll get a bit of retribution on the main show on Sunday night. But yeah, I'm going to say that Ciampa's team wins this, and that should wrap up WarGames. I think it's almost guaranteed that at the end of this show we're going to have some kind of WWE main roster running to build up. So with there being Adam Cole in there, with them being the Undisputed Era, I think we're probably going to see, I don't know, would they put somebody... No, I suppose they're not. He's not actually fighting him, but it'd be incredible for them just to push in somebody like Brock, or just somebody completely off the wall just to make an appearance and just decimate somebody at the end of the show to leave it, because that's what they want. They want hits for people to buy it the next day. So I do think that at the end of the show you're going to see a big name appear on this card from the main roster to make an impact. And somebody like Brock or Rollins would do that. But obviously Rollins did it this week on NXT and went toe-to-toe with Ciampa, so I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, I think it'll end on a big event. But yeah, that's WarGames.
Yeah, listening to Life Junkies podcast.
So, part 2, Hell in a Cell. The way me and Chris are going to do this is we're going to talk about the first 3 matches. So I'll talk about the first 3 matches, and Chris will take over. So it'll be 3-3-2. So you'll hear us relaying in that sort of order. First match we're going to talk about is AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura versus Roderick Strong. These are two of the best workers in WWE, and Shinsuke Nakamura. Like, that's harsh, but it's fair from what we've seen from him with in WWE. It's Roderick Strong is this sort of strong and stable of wrestling. You can always rely on him to put on a solid match. He's not really that exciting. He's benefited massively from being a part of the Undisputed Era. AJ Styles he's almost at this stage similar. He's always going to put on a good match, good to great match. He tends to be not flashy, and he can get a little bit formulaic when he's not being pushed against someone. You take his match against Brock Lesnar, someone he's forced to sort of rip up his match rule book somewhat and do something a bit different. So, and Nakamura, I think, while I don't tend to like triple threat formats, again, we've already had one. I've got several to talk about. I think he will benefit from this a bit, maybe, and he can come in, do a spot, and then move out, or a couple of spots and then move out, and he's not. So yeah, I'm going to go for AJ Styles to get the win here. Maybe with the club interfering, I don't know. It's a hard one to call because with the NXT guys coming in, it sort of throws everything in. While you've seen NXT as being a lesser brand, and I might elaborate about this later on when we talk about the Survivor Series 5-5-5 matches. But it's hard because NXT is supposed to be a preliminary brand, but now they're pushing it, so they're going to want to give some guys some wins, but they don't want to make the main roster look too weak. So, but for me, it's AJ Styles here. So moving on to Viking Raiders versus the New Day versus the Undisputed Era. These are three very good teams. The New Day have been one of the best teams around. We know that WWE want to push them as one of the best teams of all time, which is great. And the Viking Raiders, while I don't know, was one of them injured for a bit? Is that why they weren't on? But they've been on a tear since they've come back. Am I right there? They've been winning matches, and then they recently defeated someone, possibly a Revival for Raw titles. I'm trying to, and Undisputed Era are of course Undisputed Era. This will be Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly, who Adam Cole gets all the congratulations. He's very good and he is top, and he's shown that in recent weeks with matches against Seth Rollins and Daniel Bryan on Raw and SmackDown. But Kyle O'Reilly is a brilliant sleeper in that stable, and he at the time when it's ready for him, he will burst forth and be a brilliant star. I think he's really got the makings of it. This again is a really hard one to call. All three of these teams, you could make a great argument for them winning. Viking Riders are in the middle of a push, and this would see them. But then the thing is, in a match like this, there's no shame in losing. It's like a champion versus champion. Generally, unless one of the champions is being booked weaker or something, unless it's a heel Seth Rollins run, then there's not really any shame in losing to these guys. For me, Viking Raiders are being pushed at the moment. The New Day are getting towards being they are the old school of the tag team division, aren't they? They are the veterans, so to speak. Whereas Undisputed Era are dominating, and rightly dominating NXT. For me, I'm going to go for New Day on this one, but it's at this stage it's almost like just picking a name out of a hat. And last, before I give Chris a chance to speak again, women's title triple threat: Becky Lynch versus Bayley versus Shayna Baszler. And this is the treat we get, because for me, Shayna Baszler is the most interesting, exciting woman in wrestling right now. Becky Lynch is right behind her. Bayley is up there in the top tier. So these are three brilliant women's wrestlers. And what's quite interesting is we had some comments from Jim Cornette the other day saying that women will not draw as much as men. And this is on Twitter in relation to a comment from someone who said, he was talking about AEW, and I'm bringing up AEW in relation to women again. But this is mainly to talk about Jim Cornette, not AEW. But the guy mentioned that he was disappointed with AEW for the way they pushed the women's division if they weren't pushing them as equals to the men's. and yet they had promised that they were. And so Jim Cornette then, in a rare moment of defending AEW, he came up and he said, no women's division is ever going to is ever going to be as big as the men's. So you don't have enough stars in that division. You're just not going to make the same amount of money. It's never going to happen. Someone then asked him, well, what do you do when you get a star like Becky Lynch? And he says, you build around her, you don't build around the division. And I get the point he's trying to make, especially when you look at when he was most active, when he was highest in wrestling. The women's divisions at that time were almost a joke. You had a few, but they were drowned out. And then for so many years, we saw women's wrestlers like Mickie James and Victoria being drowned out by all the models that came through, the people that Vince wanted to be even extra Stratus, when Trish Stratus was that 1 in a million chance of a model who actually came in and had a real affinity and natural talent for wrestling. But now what we're seeing more and more brilliant women, and to be perfectly honest with you, and I said this in a WrestleMania preview show, I'm more excited about the women's division than I am the men's. This doesn't count for NXT. NXT, if anything, I'm slightly more excited for the men's, even though I've been talking about all the talent they've got, but the men's wrestlers down there are just insane. No matter how much I love Shayna Baszler and think she's brilliant, got Tommaso Ciampa and Finn Balor just will pip for me. But they are very close, and I believe, and the way I try and always do the show notes, is that they are equal. And I think that's the way you've got to push these things. You've got to. We're in a storyline world where we make it. If you push it as equal, chances are people are going to see it as equal, and that's the first step to doing it. And you've got these stars, you've got all the brilliant women in NXT, you've got a lot of very good women on the WWE roster. Although I think the mixed 5-5-5 tag matches show the lack of depth that's still there in the women's division, but there's more and more coming through every year. So if it's like anything, if you keep pushing it, it will keep improving, and at some point it will be on par with the men's division. To be honest, I think the women's division is probably doing well from a lack of interest from Vince in WWE, that he's not really, and granted, he's messed around with Bayley, and her whole first title run was an absolute cluster. It could have been that brilliant WrestleMania moment, and they were premature on the pay-per-view before it, and it was just, the whole thing was a mess, and I get that. But since then, sort of, they've let Becky Lynch run with the ball a bit, and she became, and then this one is self-defeating, especially when you're on the main roster, because Becky Lynch was hot. She was really hot when she was in control of it, and then they struggled to keep the momentum up towards WrestleMania as they made bad decisions, and I had a point, and now I'm arguing against my point. So anyway, who's going to win this? Well, we've got one for SmackDown, one for Raw. Shayna Baszler has to get the win here, and before you'd be talking about, and I was about to say it, you'd be talking about she's got to be ready to move to the main roster, but then now they're trying to push NXT. You think, well, maybe she's going to stay. Why not? It's for her personally. She probably knows that she's probably seen the mismanagement of women on the main roster, and everyone, even Becky Lynch, has been mismanaged. It's just that the character is so good that she's managed to keep herself up there. Baszler for the win for me.
So, Survivor Series, one of the 4 big pay-per-views of the year. It used to be brilliant. I used to really enjoy Survivor Series. The last few years it's kind of lost its way a little bit, I think, but let's see what this year brings. I mean, I don't know why you did this, but for some reason you opened this part talking about it being called Hell in a Cell. So you've either had a drink very early in the day, or you've got mistaken, it's not Hell in a Cell. Nakamura, Strong, AJ Styles. Technically, probably 3 of the top 10 wrestlers there is out there for work rate and just technical ability. Roderick Strong has been a slow burner for me on NXT. He's lost a few title matches. He's slowly made his way up there, but I really like him. I think he's decent. I don't think he'll have enough here. I think they'll give it to AJ Styles. Similar reasons to what you had. He is the big dog in this match. Nakamura has kind of had a bit of a regeneration of his character, because he was going nowhere. I thought they might even drop him at one point, but they're putting him with Sami Zayn, who's trying to create his own stable. He's got Cesaro in there, so there's every chance those two are going to get involved. I don't think Undisputed Era will get involved because they're later on in the night, so I think there's a chance that they could come out to help Nakamura, but I do think AJ will have too much. Probably, like you said, there will be a bit of the OC. Maybe the OC chase off Zayn and Cesaro, and AJ Styles picks up the win. But yeah, I do think AJ will win this one and get the night off to a winning start for Raw. The next match you spoke about was the Viking Raiders versus New Day versus Undisputed Era. You mentioned obviously about the New Day becoming champions. They did beat the Revival, you're right. It's Kofi and Big E now, because Xavier Woods is out for, I think, about 9 months. He did his knee in, so he's going to be off for a long time, which I suppose Kofi never got a rematch for his world title. He kind of lost his world title in about 5 seconds, and then it's never been spoken about since, but they've gave him the tag team titles. This will keep him busy. Again, unfortunately, I do think these guys will win. Viking Raiders will be good. They'll do things you wouldn't expect big guys to do in the match. Undisputed Era are technically very good, but they did beat the Revival on NXT show this week, so they've kind of gave them their win to keep their stock kind of high, to show the kind of grade they're in. I think that's so New Day can win this, and you'll probably see Kofi hit his finisher on one of the big lads and pick up the win here. So it'll be Raw 1, SmackDown 1 after the first two, with NXT looking to pick up a win. The third match, although you didn't really speak about it because you got in your soapbox for about half an hour, spoke about women's wrestling, which I completely disagree. I don't think they'll ever be on par with the men's. I don't think there'll never be a point where they will be seen as being on par. You'll get some pay-per-views, you'll get some matches that are up there and on par, but there will never be a level playing field that both men's and women's brands will fight week in, week out for the main spots. I just don't see it, and it's not a sexist thing. It's just I generally don't, just because of ability and the way things are marketed, and that I just don't see that happening. I think where they've got to now is incredible, and the women's division is so much better than it ever has been. I mean, you've got people like Charlotte Flair, and that are incredible, but I just don't ever see them getting to a level playing field. So Baszler, Lynch and Bayley, there have been a lot of crossovers over the last few weeks of mainly Baszler coming in and kicking ass, to be honest. Becky Lynch opened NXT this week, so she was there. There was no sign of Bayley. Who wins? I can't believe I'm going to say this again, but I think you're right. I think Baszler wins. But she'll not win by beating Lynch. They'll not weaken Lynch, so she'll win by probably tapping out Bayley. Yeah, she'll win by tapping out Bayley. Maybe Lynch gets distracted. I mean, I said it before, it's one of the 4 big pay-per-views of the year. Would a Ronda Rousey in the audience, in the crowd, up on the screen, not a run-in, not to get involved, but something that might distract Lynch, and then Baszler picks up the win over Bayley? I don't know. Maybe that's something that could happen. But we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I will go Baszler. So yeah, I've gone AJ Styles, New Day and Baszler, which is the same as you. And it means that after those first 3 matches that we've listed, obviously this won't be on the night, the running order, but we have 1 win for each of them.
So the men's NXT title. Now this is a really interesting one, and I think it's only recently just been announced, last day or two, is whoever wins that number 1 contenders match on WarGames the next night will challenge Adam Cole, baby, for the men's NXT title. This could be a really interesting one. Now for me, it's going to be Pete Dunne. That's the argument I'm going to take here. As a Pete Dunne versus Adam Cole match, I'm sure Chris will argue whoever he has decided, because I can guarantee you it won't be Pete Dunne. he's not a fan. We know that, so we'll move on. But any of these guys will put up a decent match against Adam Cole. Even I insulted Killian Dane and said it wasn't that good. Adam Cole is that level to bring someone up. He's that intelligent in the ring. So in that, Matt Riddle hasn't quite got. So that's why Matt Riddle wouldn't have been able to get as great a match out of Killian Dane. Don't know. But so a match like this, being able to be on the main card, we know Pete Dunne, Triple H is a big fan of Pete Dunne's, and I think he's the man to give that push and give that spotlight to. And from the two of them, we'll get a really good, really technical match that, to be honest, could put the other two world title matches to shame. This could be the best match on the card if they let it. If Vince doesn't get involved, if Vince doesn't mess with it, if they let them do what they should go out there and do, if it's the NXT producers producing it, then we could have gold, and it could be the stealer. For me, I think Adam Cole will still win it, even if it's Pete Dunne. And I know I said he's the man, and I know I said it's time, but it's his time to move up and grab a little bit of that top spotlight. It's not quite his time. I don't think it's time for Adam Cole to let go of that title, and I don't think Pete Dunne necessarily needs it after the monster run he got with the NXT UK title. That's just my view, but no, Adam Cole for win here. You know, Chris might turn around and go Killian Dane for the win. I don't know with him. He likes his men big. WWE title: Rey Mysterio versus Brock Lesnar. I'm not entirely sure what the idea of this match is. It's either going to be brilliant or it's going to be awful. There's no in between. With Brock Lesnar and small guys, you've seen him pull out some of the best matches he's done, but you've also seen him pull out some of the laziest matches he's done. I say this every time we talk about Brock. It depends what mood he's in. With someone like Rey Mysterio, he should be motivated, and Mysterio is good enough to really bring out a good match in Brock Lesnar and do something a bit more interesting. Something that Bryan and Styles, for example, wouldn't have been able to do. He'll be that little bit more with it. So, yeah, I'm going to go Brock Lesnar for win here, however, because I can't see them in a million Sundays giving the title to Rey Mysterio pin Brock Lesnar. It's very, very, very possible that they'll do, because Cain Velasquez signed a multi-year deal, I believe, or at least a multi-match deal. So it's very possible that Cain Velasquez will come back and get involved in some way, set up another match between him and Brock. But I can't see them giving Rey. We're not at this stage in his career, not taking it from Brock. It just wouldn't make sense for me. They've never, in his runs before, they never booked him as a proper world champion. So why would they give him the belt now? It just doesn't make sense. Brock Lesnar for the win. Finally, before we let Chris in again, Universal title: Daniel Bryan versus The Fiend. For me, this is another. This and the NXT title are the match of the night candidates. Daniel Bryan, brilliant in the ring. I'm not entirely sure. I've watched a few SmackDown Raws recently against my better judgment, mainly because I'm interested at the NXT guys getting involved. The match Bryan and Cole was a brilliant match. I loved every second of that match. The Fiend, Bray Wyatt. This again, it depends. If they let them go out and have a match, they will go out and have a great match, at least a great match. But if they try and do, and this is always the fear with when Vince brings in guys like the Fiends, and he's had a tendency to do Kane over the years as well. That if he tries to get it all gimmicky to try to protect one or the other, as it did at Hell in a Cell, it will just be a mess. So for me, I'm going for the Fiend to win it because I think you just destroy his character. He's going to have a long run with it because otherwise you're going to ruin the character. If he doesn't, and he's coloured the belt blue, and he's done the. I honestly, when I saw them talking about the Fiend or Bray Wyatt revealing the new WWE title, I really hoped they would go for a custom belt for him and something dark and a bit off kilter. I was a bit disappointed when they just turned it blue, which of course is the answer to everyone's questions of what are they going to do if the title swap over. Well, they will just rename it the SmackDown Universal title and change colours over. So there you go. If a tag team champions ever swapped brands, then they will just swap belts. Simple and so very, very boring. And that's the issue, isn't it? When they brought out the Universal title and the opposite tag titles and the opposite women's titles, it's just so boring and just so naff. But the titles don't have any individuality. They don't have. You may as well have the title histories being the same on the same run, because they're the same titles. They've got nothing to them. And what is wrestling if the titles aren't worth anything? Well, it's not. It shows up for the ridiculousness that it is. And when you boil anything down, it's ridiculous. What's football? It's men running around a bag of air trying to hit it into some nets. This is men fighting over a piece of leather that has no real significance. And I'm getting very moody and but it's true. Anyway, it's funny that I'm getting moody on a match that I'm actually quite excited to see. Sort of half excited, half apprehensive that Vince will get involved. But I'm going with a theme to win this one, and I will end it before I get too miserable and make our last two viewers turn off. See, I'm being optimistic there. I'm hoping for a whole of 2 viewers. Not viewers, listeners, viewers. We're on YouTube as well. So, The Fiend. I'm going to stop rambling and I will let Chris speak.
I feel like I should ask if you're alright. The way you just kept rambling on at the end. I feel like you lost your chain of thought. Anyway, let's get back to the wrestling. Men's NXT title. He likes his men big, is what you said. Okay. I like big wrestlers to hold big titles rather than having people like Rey Mysterio beat people like The Big Show. I think that's just common sense. But as you will have already heard, I too went for Pete Dunne. Not because I think he's an incredible wrestler, but I just think that WWE will think he's a bigger draw for the main pay-per-view given the UK interest. I don't see anything other than an Adam Cole win. I'm sure Dunne will do his finger tricks again and, oh, look, I can bend your finger back and all this, but in the end, Adam Cole's going to be too strong for him and Adam Cole will pick up the win. Then we've got Brock v Ray, the aforementioned big versus little. The only thing I'm worried about here is that this week Paul Heyman made it a no-holds-barred match, which when they do that, it means you're going to get some interference. Now, is it going to be Cain Velasquez, who we've not seen since Saudi? Or will it be Dominic, who would come back with a chair or something to make his a bit of revenge over what Brock did? I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I think there'll be some kind of interference here. Will it be enough to beat Brock? Will they take the title off Brock already? I don't think they will. I really hope they don't. I genuinely don't want to see a Rey Mysterio title reign. 74-year-old Rey Mysterio who needs help putting his mask on, holding the title. No, thank you. So I'm sure we're going to see a bit of Cain Velasquez at some point. Hopefully Brock's got enough. This is the end of this feud, and then we're going to see what they're going to do with Brock on SmackDown. But yeah, I'm going to go for Brock as well. And then the final match you mentioned was The Fiend versus Daniel Bryan. Now, The Fiend's been pretty quiet since Rollins. A couple of attacks on Bryan. A couple of shows he's not been on, which is good, because, they're trying to just build a bit of mystique around him and not having him shoved in everybody's face week in, week out. I also don't see how you can have him lose the title here. It would make no sense, to be honest. I don't even know why he's fighting Daniel Bryan. I don't know why he's attacked him in the first place. It's not really explained it. Maybe it will this week. Obviously, we're recording before this week's SmackDown. But yeah, I think The Fiend will win. And then obviously, I've just been listening to you talk about titles and how they're boring, but what can you do? You've got 2 separate shows, so you need 2 separate lines of titles. You need a men's champion, a women's champion, a secondary men's champion, tag team champions. Without giving them faddy naff names, there's not much you can do. And I know they've obviously made his belt blue on SmackDown, but again, what else can you do? It is Survivor Series has always been red v blue, now it's red v blue v yellow, but sometimes I just don't think you just can't do anything about that. But yeah, that's what I would say.
So we get to the Survivor Series matches. Now I'm sure one of these will start the show. I think they'll go big and go with one of these, probably the women's match. So I'm going to talk about the women's match first. This is Team Raw. Charlotte Flair versus Natalya versus Asuka versus Kairi Sane and Sarah Logan versus Team SmackDown, which is Sasha Banks, Carmella, what's her name, Nikki Brooks, someone, Lacey Evans and Nikki Cross. Also against Team NXT, which is to be announced, which is an odd one. I'm not entirely sure if it's to do with the women's match in it can't be because Baszler's already on the card, so I don't know why they haven't announced it yet or what's going on, if they don't want to muddy the waters in regards to the WarGames match, or if I've missed something somewhere along the line of who's meant to be in it, because the men's NXT team is to be announced as well. So we have so the problem is now this makes it almost impossible to call, because you don't know who's going to be in it for the NXT team, and I'm looking to try and get a hint on my phone from the Wikipedia page of what's going on, and it's not loading. In fact, it's not doing anything, so that's not helping me. Flair, Asuka saying this is what I need. This is what I started to talk about this earlier. Is when you sort of see Flair, Asuka and Sane are three of the top women on the brand. Natalya is always pushed like she is relevant, even if she's not a top member, but she's always used. She always has a place. Sarah Logan seems to have come out of nowhere. I don't remember seeing her coming back. Sort of just been plucked. Oh, we need another woman. Point at her. That one there. And there you go. Sarah Logan's on the team. And it's, if you look across on the SmackDown side, Sasha Banks again being pushed as a top woman. Carmella is always around. Brooke again is one that sort of seems to be not as prominent as Carmella, because Carmella's managed to get the gig of R-Truth and the dancing and the 24/7 title silliness, but Brooke has always been in the background in segments, and she's a body. And then Lacey Evans, we all know what everyone thinks of her, and Nikki Cross. Has she split up with what's her name? Alexa Bliss, because that seems to be another odd one where she's on it and Bliss isn't. I know she had the match with Sasha Banks, not Sasha Banks, with Bayley. The war of words with Sasha Banks on Twitter, I believe it was, where they set up the match and she got herself on the team. I would say, looking at those lineups, I'd want to go for Team NXT. To be fair, I'm going to go for Team NXT. I don't know who's on it. But who have you got? So Baszler's already wrestling tonight. So I'm going to go up and look at the women's WarGames matches. So you need 5 women from that. So what you're looking at: Rhea Ripley, Mia Yim, Shirai. So that's 3. Belair would be another good shout. Maybe someone like Toni Storm. Isn't that what you've got there? Is a solid team of 5 very good women's wrestlers. Lorraine Knox as backups. Kaylee Ray as a backup, even Dakota Kai as a backup. They're still decent women's wrestlers. So I'm going to say the women's NXT girls are going to win. Then we move on to the men's Survivor Series match. Team Raw: Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Kevin Owens, Randy Orton, and Ricochet versus Team SmackDown: Roman Reigns, Ali, Braun Strowman, Baron Corbin, and Shorty G versus Team NXT, to be announced, which is not useful in the slightest. So, who is going to win this one? Again, this one I go, I don't know. I am going to turn around and say I'm going to go for Team SmackDown, simply because they have Reigns and Strowman, are almost unbeatable. There'll be some issue with Corbin and Shorty G, and Ali, who for me I'm a big fan of. He'll probably get knocked out, so I think you'll see Reigns and Strowman stood tall at the end. For me, Rollins is McIntyre seems to be the guy that they pimp out to the whoever they're pushing to the main event. He's sort of landed in that gateway position, which, to be fair, moving on from the days of 3MB is improvement for him. It's Owens. I still think Owens is a good chance. Owens will both go back down to NXT. Maybe this will be him saying he's going back to. Maybe he'll turn on his team and try and help Team NXT. I don't know. But again, if we go look at the NXT, look at the NXT card. Look who there would you put? Who would you put on it? Finn Balor, 1. Another one, Damian Priest could be another shout if he doesn't win the number 1 contenders match. If not, Pete Dunne is a good choice. And then you can't use any of Undisputed Era because they've all got matches. That's fine. Tommaso Ciampa. You've got Lee. Keith Lee was up there. There's Matt Riddle been involved as well, so that's another good name. Or you can even use that other to be announced. Or what if they'd go and announce Kevin Owens for the WarGames match and say he's now on NXT, which means that you then get it to be announced for, and he then goes to Team NXT on the Men's Survivor Series match. You've now got it to be announced on Team Raw, which can add a bit of intrigue. I don't know. I'm just spitballing ideas on it because, to be honest, I don't really have much to say about either of these. You saw me ramble a bit on the women's. I'm now starting to ramble a bit on the men's. So I'm going to leave it here. My pick was for women's for Team NXT. For the men's, I'm going for Team SmackDown. If we look at what that leaves us with, so 1 apiece from the first 3 matches. So that to me, that's 2 wins for NXT, 2 wins for SmackDown, and 1 win for Raw. That is a sensible spread for me. We'll go with that. I'm happy with that. I'm going to let Chris say his last bit, and then you'll hear me for the outro.
So now we're left with the Survivor Series matches. It's going to be a bit crowded. 15 wrestlers out there, 3 in the ring at a time. Like you've said, we don't know who the NXT teams are going to be, but we can do educated guesses or who we hope they will be. On the women's match, I see you've gone for the unnamed NXT team to win. I disagree. I don't think they will. I think you've got some big main roster players there from both Raw and SmackDown, and she's in probably the weakest team, Charlotte Flair, but she's also the biggest name. So I'm going to stick my neck out and say that Raw will win this due to Charlotte Flair. Raw will win this due to Charlotte Flair. NXT, because we don't know who's going to be there. People like Candice, I can't have her winning matches at Survivor Series. I'm going to say it's going to be messy. I don't think it'll be particularly long, the women's match. I think you're right, it might. I don't think it's a strong enough match to open the show. I know you think it will, but I don't. I just don't see it at all. So I'm going to say the Raw women's team win this match. And then you've got the men's match, which again we don't know the NXT team. We do know the men's. Some big names in there. Seth Rollins. You know what? I think you're probably right. I'm going to say Team NXT win this. Just because I think if you put a team together of Balor, Riddle, Ciampa, Keith Lee, 5th member, if the dream, could be the dream, could also be something like Walter. We've seen Walter do a couple of run-ins in America and over here. Or was it just over here? It might have just been over here. That'd be a good name to get in there. Walter, big name. I'd love to see it, to be honest. So yeah, I think NXT is going to win it. I think Raw, the team of Raw there'll be a lot of infighting. There's been a lot of stuff between Orton and Ricochet the last couple of weeks. I could see Randy Orton hitting an RKO on Ricochet. And then where's Seth going to go after this? Could you see a Seth Drew McIntyre feud start also, which will completely take that team out of it? Then you've got SmackDown. Reigns very rarely loses, I know, at pay-per-views. And you've got Braun Strowman in there. I don't know, I just think maybe looking at who we've picked to win elsewhere, NXT will probably need a win at this point, so I'm going to say Team NXT win it. Before we did this podcast, I was looking forward to this pay-per-view, and just going through the matches, I don't know. I feel like it's a bit of a damp squib. I feel like the one match that could have been class would have been Adam Cole, Brock Lesnar, The Fiend, the 3 champions. I'm not sure why they haven't done that. I really don't know. But that could have been something big. Instead, we've got some alright matches. Looking back at what we've picked, Nakamura, Strong Styles, technically should be a great match. You've got the tag teams. The women's match, yeah, Baszler, Lynch, Bayley, that could be good. But yeah, I don't know. It's just going to be very strange. I mean, like the Fiend Bryan, it's not a Survivor Series match, It's a pay-per-view match for Hell in a Cell or somewhere like that. It's not a Survivor Series match. Now there's Brock v. Ray, which is disappointing, to be honest. But I'll watch it, and you never know. It could be decent. It's good to see NXT. It's been really good to see some of their stars get airtime. And again, some of the big wrestlers, like NXT show this week was great. There's some really good matches on there. And although it's been carnage, most shows have ended in carnage with just mass run-ins and pile-ups. It is different. It is good. I wonder, thinking now, will Triple H get involved in any way? Him and Rollins have been tetchy with each other. Maybe that's what happens. Maybe because I'm guessing Triple H is going to be ringside. Yeah, that'd be good, wouldn't it? Rollins, Triple H at WrestleMania. Or not in WrestleMania, maybe Royal Rumble or something like that. One of the next big ones that come up. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff up in the air that could happen. But I just hope it's a good card. I think we've picked very similar picks all the way throughout. I'll let you add them up because I can't remember. But cool, and hopefully when we do the results show, we'll be on live together. Thanks a lot, mate. Keep well. Cheers.
Right, so everybody, thanks for listening. You can find me personally at Brazier25 on Twitter and Instagram. I've also started a new Football Manager Twitter account, which will be based around whichever manager I'm managing at the moment. I'm currently doing a Chelsea Way save, so it will be called Frank Lampard, but it'll be at Brazier FM. You can also find The Life Junkies on Twitter, _Life Junkies, and on Facebook, The Life Junkies 25. If you pop over to thelifejunkies25.wordpress.com, you'll find all our written articles, videos, podcasts will all go up there. And what you'll find at the moment is a lot of new FM content coming out. I say new. You have some old series from me and Chris, which we are migrating across to the new site. They will be coming out, rotating on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So right now you'll have the start of my Cambridge save from FM 18, my England save from FM 19, Chris's Nautico save, although he started off with someone else and the whole thing went to pot, so don't be confused that the first vlog isn't a Nautico save. I've already had tweets about that. And then his Blythe Spartans from FM 18, and you'll also find up there the first episode of Chris's new series, which is the Black Crow Corporation, episode 1, the beginning. That is on our YouTube channel. That is also to download. You should have heard it if you're listening to this podcast. If you're subscribed to us, you would have got it along with our announcement about the FM content, where we talk a bit more and I talk about my Chelsea save. So go check that out. That will be, if you're watching us on YouTube, that will be in one of the squares, the Black Crow Corporation. Boom, go check that out. You will see coming up from me, there'll be the Chelsea Way blogs. I'll do an intro, talk about the Chelsea and what I'm trying to do with them, and then I'll talk about tactics after that, and then you'll get a review and a discussion on how well I did. So thanks again for coming with us for this preview show. Hopefully next week we'll be here with a review, and the week after we're planning to do a Football Manager podcast with me and Chris, talking about what we like and what we don't like for the new game. So join us for those, and goodbye.